Alright, what's going on, guys? I thought I would show you another awful deck that I played with when I was new to Magic. I uploaded one of these in the past, my Tribal Zombie deck, which was the first deck that I ever built in Onslaught, and this is the second deck that I ever built, and the first deck that I ever built from scratch. Now I have these cards laid out in a weird way. It'll make sense in a little bit. And some of you might be panicking because they aren't sleeved. I know, it's just terrible. There's a reason for that. These cards are in pretty terrible condition. I played with them for years outside of sleeves. You know, this was at a time when sleeves weren't as popular as they are now. It wasn't just me. If you watch Pro Tour coverage from the time, you'll see that they didn't use sleeves then either. But you can see if the camera will focus. Hang on. Yeah, see? They're just kind of gross. And I didn't want to put them in sleeves and then have them, you know, potentially, oh yeah, look at that. I didn't want to put them in sleeves and then have them potentially, you know, contaminate sleeves in case I put something valuable in them in the future. So I'm just leaving them out. So yeah, that's what happens when you play with cards outside of sleeves for years. Not just out of sleeves, but, you know, on a grimy lunchroom table right after eating greasy lunchroom food, and then shuffling a deck of cards for 3 years, 4 years or so. They get kind of gross. So anyway, back to this deck. As I said, this was the first deck I built from scratch, and the way this deck came about was I was in high school, I was looking through my rare binder, which was a binder of just every rare I had ever opened, and I was thinking to myself, man, it would be nice if I could play all of my best creatures in one deck. Because I was new to Magic, right? So in my mind, the best creatures were the biggest ones, obviously. So, you know, I had a red dragon and a blue kraken and a white angel, and I was like, I just want to play all of them. I want to play all of them in the same deck. And that was completely absurd, but I was determined to do it. So I basically unintentionally built a 5-color mana ramp deck. Basically, I took out every single massive creature that I ever opened in a booster. Keep in mind, I lived in a small town. There was no LGS. There was no gaming store. Every single card I owned, I either opened in a booster or traded for. So every single massive creature that I had went into this deck. We're going to look at this as if it was a pack opening, actually, because we're just going to go through all these cards. It's a whole bunch of individual big creatures. And then we had the mana ramp aspect. So, yep. We have a Fertile Ground, 2 mana, enchant land. When it's tapped, it produces 1 mana of any color. Had 3 of those. And this, by the way, guys, I see some of you newer players who are like, man, those white bordered cards are so pretty. Well, this is why we hated white border cards. Look at that. Yeah, it's not so nice looking. So sleeves weren't so popular back then. And white bordered cards, they just got gross. So, you know, it's easy to say, you know, like, well, why didn't you use sleeves? Well, sleeves weren't as popular, and this is what happened to your white bordered cards. So, anyway, back to the deck. We have 3 Fertile Grounds, and then we have 3 Rampant Growths. I think it's 3, right? Nope, 2. 2 Rampant Growths. That's basically the same thing. 2 mana, search your library for a basic land, put it into play tapped. So there's 5 of those, essentially. 7th edition art, you're so weird. And then we have Kodama's Reach. Search your library for 2 basic lands, put 1 into play and 1 into your hand. So there's 2 of those. And now we have the 4 mana variant. So this is like Rampant Growth. Search your library for 2 lands, put them into play tapped. Explosive Vegetation. Love this card as a teenager. I was a big fan of green because big creatures, you know, big creatures are good. When you're new, they're not, but they were good. I thought they were good. And yeah, so Explosive Vegetation, I had probably 6 or 7 of these. I just kept opening them. They're uncommon, and I had so many. I just kept getting them in all my boosters. So yeah, I used them a lot, and I was a fan. And then we have, nope, we want this one next. Maybe I should have actually looked at these, but this is the 4 mana variant of that. So 4 mana, enchant land. When it's tapped, add 2 mana of any color. So just like Rampant Growth and Fertile Ground, these are 4 mana and they add 2. So I had 4 of those. Yep. So 4 Dawn's Reflection and 4 Explosive Vegetation. and then 3 each of Fertile Ground, no, and 2 of Rampant Growth. I just looked at them and forgot. That's my goldfish memory that gets me in trouble during games. And then we have Journey of Discovery. Search your library for 2 basic lands, reveal them and put them to your hand, and then you can play 2 additional cards if you play an additional 3 basically with Entwine. So 6 mana, search your library for 2 lands and put them into play, untap, essentially. Then we have Corrosion Tuskers, which was perfect for this deck. We were mana ramping, but it also worked for, just searching your deck for a land. It's a 7 mana 6/5 if you just want to play it, or you can cycle it for 3, get a land, put it into your hand, and draw a card for cycling. So that was functional, 3 of those. And then Accelerated Mutation. This is just a stupid card. Target creature gets +X/+X, where X is the highest converted mana cost of permanents you control. And everything was big. Like I said, this was every big creature that I owned, so this was kind of a game winner at the time. And then we have the creatures. Yeah, these are probably pretty gross too. Let me slide these off the table. But let's look. These were in a binder, and they're still pretty gross looking. So it's just, playing with them unsleeved is just not a good idea. I'm thinking we should just look at this as if it was a pack opening. Should I do a price overlay just for fun? I mean, I can't see it now, but I kind of want to. I think I will. Anyway, so this, as I said, every big creature that I owned in every single color. So, should be fun looking through this. This isn't really a deck tech anymore. It's just, hey, look at all the big creatures that I opened when I was in high school. But we have Crater Hellion. Ironically, one of the few cards that I traded for. I didn't open this. But the 6 mana 6/6, when it comes into play, deal 4 damage to each other creature, and it has Echo, so you have to pay its mana cost the next turn or it dies. But this was great because all of my creatures were massive, and it cleared the board most of the time. So clear the board and win the game more often than not, because you can just attack with everything. And then we have Shivan Dragon. Foil too. Ooh, look at this. I remember opening this. So this would have been 8th edition came out after Onslaught, and I learned right around Onslaught. So I was very new to the game, and I remember I opened this on Christmas morning. My mom had bought me a bunch of 8th edition boosters for Christmas, and this was something that I opened. I just remember my jaw dropping, because it's a Shivan Dragon, and obviously Shivan Dragon is clearly the best creature you could ever open ever. It's not, but new player, this was just amazing. I couldn't believe that I opened a foil Shivan Dragon. I also couldn't believe that it wasn't worth like $50, because I thought it was going to be so valuable, and obviously it's not. Then we have Magma Giant, 7 mana 5/5. When it comes into play, deal 2 damage to each other creature and each player. Not great, but apparently I thought it was good because I traded for 2 more. I opened one in a booster, and I traded for the other 2. Don't know why, not great, but I thought it was good. And then we have Bringer of the Red Dawn. It costs 9, but we're not going to pay 9 for it. We're going to pay 1 of each color because it has an alternate casting cost. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you may untap target creature and gain control of it. So you can steal your opponent's creatures and attack them with it. Don't know why we need to steal our opponent's creatures when we have plenty of our own that are massive, but apparently I thought it was necessary. And then next up, oh man, Laquatus' Champion. This was my favorite creature for so long. Oh man, I just wanted to put this in every single deck I built. I loved Laquatus' Champion. At the time, I think my favorite color combination was green and black. I liked black because it was dark and creepy, and that was just something that I liked from a flavor perspective. And this was just my favorite. I love this thing. I also loved the Odyssey books, if you read that, in which case you would be familiar with Laquatus and his champion. But it's a 6 mana 6/3. When it comes into play, target player loses 6 life, and when it leaves play, they gain that life back. And I love this thing so much that I traded for as many as I could get. So I have 3 of them. Also, I love the art. Focus on the art. Just one of my favorite creatures of all time. This is like a huge nostalgia thing for me. I just love this card. I wouldn't play with it now, but it was cool at the time. And then we have the kit. You know what this is? You know what? Look, you know what that is? Man, when I was new, when big creatures were the best, this thing was just inconceivable. Just look at that mana cost. So clearly it was amazing, because with that mana cost, it has to be amazing, right? So it's a 8/8 flyer. When it comes into play, you remove target player's hand from the game, and then when it dies, they get it back. So that was the nightmare. This is also a nightmare. That was just a theme with Torment, where these nightmares that would steal something when they came into play and then give it back when they left. So essentially this is just a 11 mana 8/8 with flying. We were mana ramping, and this seemed amazing. Alright, next up we have Vision of the Dreadful. Onslaught, this is when I was getting into the game. It's a 6 mana 5/5 with flying. Tap it, destroy target creature. That's all it does. Kind of amazing when you're a new player. You're mana ramping. It's really not that bad. A 6 mana 5/5 with flying isn't terrible, and tapping to destroy target creature isn't bad either. You know, it's big, it's expensive, but that's kind of cool, I guess. I still kind of like it. I wouldn't play with it, but it's cool. Then we have Bringer of the Black Dawn. This is like Bringer of the Red Dawn. This was a cycle in a 5th Dawn. Another 9 mana 5/5, but we can pay 5 for it, which we will definitely do. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may pay 2 life. If you do, search your library for a card and put that card on top of it. Now that's at the beginning of your upkeep, so it's right before you draw. So basically, you get to pick what you draw for 2 life. Actually really good in this deck, considering how big everything is. Being able to just pick any card out of the deck and have that be what you draw is super useful, and there's 2 of them. I must have traded for 1. Oh man. Thorn Elemental. Let me tell you about Thorn Elemental. I got this in the 7th edition starter kit, which is what I used to learn how to play, and this was just inconceivably good for me. It's not good, but man, did I love this card. And it's foil. This is before foil extended to the actual art itself. But yep, it's a 7 mana 7/7, and when it's blocked, you can make it assign its combat damage as if it weren't. So basically it's unblockable, except that it still takes damage, so it's not as good as unblockable. But just a 7 mana 7/7 that's guaranteed to hit your opponent. Keep in mind there was that accelerated mutation, so this could be a 14/14. That's basically unblockable. It was pretty big. And again, when I was a new player, I thought that was a good thing. And I did trade for a second one. That's how good I thought it was. This one's in pretty terrible condition. It's peeling, but yep. Those are those. Thicket Elemental. This one's interesting. 5 mana 4/4, pay 2 to kick it. So you can pay 7 for it. And if you do, you reveal cards off the top of your library until you reveal a creature card and you put that into play. Obviously, we're going to be putting something huge into play because everything is huge. So definitely worth the extra 2 mana. And yeah, that was always kind of fun. Just spin the wheel, see what massive creature you get. And then we have Ivy Elemental. This was the one thing that you didn't want to hit with that, because it just dies. It's just an X and 1 mana, and it comes into play as an XX, or it gets X +1/+1 counters. So its size was purely determined by how much mana you had, but generally speaking, we would have a lot of mana, so it was usually pretty big. And there's 2 of them again. I don't think... I might have opened 1. I'm pretty sure I did. I mean, this is Odyssey, so I was definitely buying boosters at this point. But I don't think I opened both of them. I had to trade for 1. Thirst I opened. I remember this. It's a 7 mana 5/5, pay 1, tap it, and target creature gets +5/+5. Not really that good. Doesn't really have any point in this deck. I guess it works well with Thorn Elemental. But yep, I played it because it was rare and it was big, and that was that was all that needed to be. That was the only requirement for being in this deck. Then we have Root Elemental. It's a 6 mana 6/5 with morph, so you can pay 3, put it face down as a 2/2, and then pay 7 to morph it up. And when you morph it, you put a creature from your hand into play. Also, not really necessary. It's a lot of extra mana to spend when we can already play everything. But I guess it gave me something to play early game. And everybody knew what this was. It was the only creature with morph in here, I think. This and the next card, right? Yeah. But, yep, it's kind of pointless, but I played with it anyway, because it was rare, and it has a big mana cost, so clearly it went in. And then we have Exalted Angel. This was actually a pretty good card. It's a 6 mana 4/5 with flying and lifelink, and it has more 4, so you can pay 3 for it, and then pay 4 for it the next turn. So you can have it as a 4th turn 4/5 flying lifelink. So pretty cool. Probably, again, the best card, the most playable card in the deck. Ironically, it's the most playable card, and there's nothing to say about it. We got another angel here. Blinding Angel, 5 mana 2/4, flying when it attacks. Target player or that player skips their combat phase. Kind of silly. I mean, all of our creatures are bigger, so our opponent's combat phase shouldn't matter. It was nice in group games, though, I guess, kind of. Because next up is Luminous Angel. This is also kind of overcosted for what we're doing in this deck. But it's 7 mana, 4/4, flying. Definitely not great. And at the beginning of our upkeep, we put a 1/1 Spirit token into play. So, again, why is this in here? I don't know. We could have cut white entirely, I think. There's only 3 cards, and it's just kind of meh. But on to blue. Oh, man. This is one of the first rares that I remember opening. Technically, I was opening boosters for a while, and I don't remember what rares they were. But this is the first one where, when I knew what rares were, I knew what rares were, so I was excited about it. But, it's a Tidal Kraken. It's a giant piece of crap, but I thought it was the best. It's an 8 mana 6/6 that's unblockable. That's it. That's all it does. It's just a big unblockable creature that's very expensive. 8 mana and triple blue in a 5 color deck. And this was a deck with purely basic lands. I don't have lands with me. I was like, that's whatever. It was all basic lands. But Tidal Kraken. Yep, it's big and stupid. And it just so happens that years later, I opened another one. So, first rare, and then an 8th edition, again, I opened another one. And then we have a Quicksilver Dragon. 6 mana, 5/5 with flying. And then you can basically redirect spells. I guess the idea behind this is because it has Morph, you could morph it up and then redirect a spell that was targeting the Morph creature. I guess, does it work that way? I think that was the point. But yeah, basically just a 6 mana 5/5 with flying. And, it's a blue dragon, so that's kind of cool, I guess. What's next? Oh, Avatar of Will. Why? Why is this in here? I don't know. I know why. It's because it was a big creature, but kind of pointless. It's an 8 mana, 5/6 with flying. Not good. And if an opponent has no cards in hand, Avatar will cost 6 less. Now, this was actually played in competitive decks. It was played in control decks. Just as, a game finisher, right? Control decks always have one massive giant creature that they use to win the game. And this was it for some decks at this time. Because you just control your opponent, counter all their spells. And I think it'd be played in Dimir decks. So you'd make them discard, and then, you got a 2 mana 5/6 with flying, and that was your game finisher. And why it was in this deck, I don't know. But, it was. And then, this is one of the latest editions. 6 mana 1/5, and when you draw a card, you can look at the top 3 cards and draw one of those instead. So basically, you're fixing your draws. You can pick what you draw out of your top 3 cards every turn. Pretty sweet in this deck. Not that great. Is this played in Commander, though? I'm curious if it is. It seems like something that would be played in Commander. And then we have Phantom Neshoba. 7 mana 7/7, trample lifelink. And then you can't deal damage to it because it gets smaller and smaller. But I thought it was pretty cool. And I didn't open that many Judgment boosters, but this was one of the few cards that I got out of Judgment. And then the final card is the Memnarch. So, yeah. 7 mana 4/5, pay 3 to make something an artifact, and then pay 4 to gain control of target artifact. And that's permanently. So basically, 7 mana, gain control of anything, and we always had 7 mana. Triple blue was tough, but we had Dawn's Reflection and stuff like that, so it was doable, and we just gained control of everything. So, yep, that's a deck. A gross, disgusting deck that's going back into quarantine after this video is done. Don't shuffle your cards on sleeve, guys. Don't do it. It's bad. But, yep, that was the deck. That was the deck that I played. I probably played that, I don't know. I probably built it in my freshman year in high school, for sure. Maybe. And I played with it all throughout high school. I probably played with it a little bit outside of high school. And as I mentioned in the zombie deck, I was playing group games. I was playing group games every day at school. I was playing group games every day after school. Usually 4 to 6 people. Sometimes 8, 10, 12 people. Just massive giant group games. So even though it seems really bad, and it is really bad, it's really bad. But it's like a Commander deck, right? It was important to have big creatures in big group games. Just like in Commander, just because, you know, when you have 80 to 100 points of life that you have to get through in order to win, having a big creature that can do lots of damage is definitely important. So that was probably the biggest issue with my evolution as a Magic the Gathering player, that I spent the first, I don't know, 5 years of playing Magic in strictly group games. So it took me a while to wrap my head around the mana curve aspect, the, you know, be quick and deal damage fast mentality. I think that hindered the, I don't know, the advancement of my deck building skills. But on the other hand, I did get to play with this stupid, awful deck. And it was a good deck. It was a good deck in that group, in that scenario. A bunch of new players, new to the game, don't know what they're doing, playing group games. And, you know, I kind of felt like I hit on something. I was like, man, I figured it out. I built a deck that can just beat everyone. And it was really good. It was really good in that format, I guess you could say. In that environment would be the better phrasing. But in that environment, this deck was sweet. Well, anyway, I guess that's all I have to say about this deck. I guess, you know, if you guys want to see more of this, I can think of 3 other decks that I played in high school that I played extensively. By that, I mean, I put it together and it was good enough to keep together for years. So 3 more decks. I don't know if I'm going to continue with the series. I did this really quick, just for fun. If you want to see more of this, though, if you want to see those other 3 decks, those other 3 awful, terrible, noob decks that I played with when I was a teenager, let me know. Let me know. I'll happily put those together for you guys if you want to see them. And anyway, yep, if you like this, definitely give this video a like. And check out the channel, subscribe if you haven't. And I will see you guys in the next one.